I think he's going to be upset because they're flying under the radar, which is crazy to think when you're in first place in the SEC. We see the dominance of the SEC last season and this league, and we still don't talk about this team enough. When you have guys that are willing to buy into it and say, okay, I'm not going to go out here and get 17, 18 points. I may get 13. They play 11 guys. This is the style. This is what we're doing. You like it, buy in. We're going to win a ton of games. We're going to press off missed free throws. Like, that's the thing that teams don't prepare for enough. When you think about Texas A&M, and right now, obviously, we're in the middle of conference play, so you have a little bit more time, but you get to the NCAA tournament, and you have a one-day prep. Let's just say you play on Thursday, you get A&M on Saturday, both teams win. You have a one-day prep to try and prepare for that? Are you kidding me? Like, how are you preparing your team? Guys, just so you know, off a missed free throw, you're getting pressed. Like, the second you rebound the ball, here comes the pressure. That is not easy to deal with. Where are your outlets? How do we do this? It's so impressive to see what he's doing. So I think Alabama will be fine. I think the Bediako thing, continuing to get him involved, the unknown, is he going to be able to continue to play? That's another thing that locker room and Nate Oates has to deal with. I think the guard play will be able to handle the pressure from Texas A&M. But, there's some things there that you have to think about just in terms culturally moving forward with this group. Is he in? Is he out? Do we know? What is Alabama's ceiling now with some of those unknowns?
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I think to touch on the Alabama piece today, it's just, when you turn the ball over, it can't be live ball turnovers. And Alabama's actually done a good job all season of taking care of the ball. They're still, even after today, they're still top 10 nationally in taking care of it. But 13 live ball turnovers, like that can't happen. And I just thought it was a full-on collapse, whether it was on the glass. I just thought Florida kind of took their spirit. So I actually like Alabama in this bounce back spot against Texas A&M, being able to go back home. And I've talked about Tuscaloosa, like that needs to be a better home environment. Teams have been too comfortable there. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. But this is also 3 straight years after the Brandon Miller team where Nate Oates is just searching defensively. I mean, 3 years of this. And so that's why it's hard for me to buy into Alabama long-term as a Final Four contender, because I just don't to forget 6 in a row. Like I just, them winning 4 in a row, with the defense being so inconsistent, scares me. So I'll be very curious to see which direction this goes in SEC play, because right now they've lost 5 of 8 now, which is kind of unheard of in the Nate Oates era.
Yeah, and again, for the A&M part of it too, we're going to find out a lot about them. They still have trips to Vanderbilt, Arkansas, and home against Kentucky. But you were about to say something. What do you got?
Well, yeah, no, the Alabama side of it, though, like when you're making 12.5 threes a game, third in the NCAA, like you're going to be in games. You're going to have some of that go your way. And I think that's the biggest thing with, the way that Alabama style-wise goes. Like, that's why the analytics have pushed so many teams to, we need more threes. We need more threes. Like, and that because it's going to keep you in games. We all know Alabama has issues. Like, that's not a secret to any of us that watch it. But the threes cover up some of their areas of weakness. And if they're able to shoot it at the level that they need to shoot it at, now all of a sudden it's a big difference. They make 14 of them in this Florida game, and you're thinking, okay. But like Mike talked about, it's the live ball turnovers. It was the defensive identity that needs to get better at some point. You need to have somebody anchor that middle. Now, it's been something they're searching for, and Bediako coming back. But then, Matt touched on that as well. Like, the question mark, that to me is why defensively they're never going to be great this year, is because there will always be a question mark about, is he in? Is he out? What are we doing? How are we doing it? But the threes do cover up a lot of those errors. It's just the way college basketball kind of has been when you see teams that really embrace the three.
I don't know that Bediako's going anywhere. They keep finding judges that went to Alabama. So, I mean, it just
Listen, I would love to touch on this. Like obviously I didn't play at the level that these two guys did, but like, how do you, like, as a player, how do you feel about that? Like, we bring him back in, we don't know, is he in, is he out? My role changes. Like, what do you think's going on in that locker room? Because Mike, you just touched on it too. Like, they're not playing great. Like, we saw him lose to Tennessee. We saw Nate Ament go in there and do what he did. Today was, I mean, it wasn't even competitive in the first half when you really think about it. So, like, is this more of an issue culturally? Like, that's how I look at it from a coaching standpoint. I'm looking at, like, hey, something's off. Like, something's off with this team, and you bring this guy back into the fold. How do the other guys feel about that? Like, the locker room, like, that is – you could play the game of basketball a million different ways, but if you're not connected, if you don't have a connected together group, and I'm not trying to bring up Indiana football again, like, that group is connected. Like, that was not the highest paid payroll in college football. Culture still matters. So, yes, the rules are different. We can do this. We can bring this guy in, that we can bring him in January, but as a player, like, how are these other guys feeling about that? And is that the problem with Alabama right now?
Well, McCall, it's a good question, because this is on top of Alabama already having a revolving door of guys coming in and out with injury. So, like, Amari Allen's out. You got Holloway out for a few games. So they're already dealing with that. You throw Bediako on top of it. When this initially happened, there was a thought that crossed my mind that was like, man, it's rare for a team in January to address a need like this for Alabama, right? I think that's what everybody says. But it's also rare in January, and you know this as a coach, McCall, to have somebody like Bediako come onto your team and potentially serve as a, hey, it's us against the world thing. That's half of the stuff that goes on in the locker room, is just like manufacturing something that gets you fired up for a game. Knowing that you're going into hostile environments and people are going to be yelling at your guy and chanting at your guy, that should band you together. Like, that should be a jump off point for you to be able to say, you know what, like, I'm going to fight for the guy next to me, and this is going to be like a rallying cry for us. But it hasn't been that for them. So that's what I'm just, it's kind of befuddling to me, because I would have thought when this happened, given the reaction to it, that it's something that could bring a group together, and it feels like they've kind of gone the opposite way.
But Mike, I think the biggest thing with it is you look at it like nobody knows their role then. And because you don't know your role and your role is constantly changing, now all of a sudden as a team, you look at, but like what you always hear, next man up. Well, no, it's I'm going to go get a next man. Like whatever happened, the next man up, now he doesn't get his chance. And now all of a sudden the roles are constantly changing. And as players, you're like, well, I was supposed to be the next man up. Like, how am I going to be engaged now when my turn, I just got skipped over? And I think, Matt, to bring up what you're talking about, yeah, I think it's an issue. I think it's a huge issue. I think it's one that coaches are going to have to evaluate. Their job is to win games. We've heard this now for the last 3 weeks. We got to win games. Whatever the rules are, we're going to try to figure out what it is, but we're going to try to win games. But you got to look at the connectivity. The best teams that I've ever played on, we were tight. We were close. Nothing could break us. If a guy was injured, yes, it was next man mentality. Things have changed a little bit with NIL. There's a little bit of more me, and you're trying to weed through that when you're recruiting guys and bringing them in. Like, are they the right people? That's important. And now with this, extra layer that goes on top of it, as far as, well, we're going to bring somebody in mid-season, like, that's really tough. The other thing is, I played professional overseas for 10 years. That happened all the time as a pro. But as an 18 to 22 or 24 or 25, wherever we're at in college basketball, right? Like, they haven't experienced that yet, of somebody coming in and taking their job. Like, that's really tough to swallow as a young kid. As a pro, it took me 2 or 3 years overseas for somebody to come take my job to finally realize, like, oh, this is the way, professional basketball is. Well, we're kind of, in that a little bit, where these young players, can they accept that? And I think it's hard to do, guys. I don't think Alabama players are doing it.
Butch, I'll agree with you. The last point I'll make is
Yeah.
that if there were to be a piece, hypothetically, if there were to be a piece that you integrate in January to be like a quote unquote impact guy, this should be the piece that rocks the boat the least. Like
Correct.
a rim running, rim protector. It's not like you're bringing in a point guard to timeshare with LeBaron Philon. You're not bringing in a wing where it's like, how do you space? How do we put you here? Like you have a guy. The issue to me is like playing those two bigs together, because I think that takes away some of the spacing for these guards to get downhill and spray for these threes that they look to shoot. So like, I think there's changes that can be made there, because maybe, to your point, Butch, maybe that's Nate Oates being like, I don't want to do this to my guy Aiden Sherrill, just so we're going to play them both. Right. So maybe that
Correct.
that
Yeah, no,
I don't
sure.
know.
Absolutely.
Just a thought.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
It's a great question too, because you really wonder what was the culture like before he got there, and like, it was the we before me. Are we all trying to win games? It's a great question though, McCall. When we come back though, we are going to do a quick whip around of yesterday's action. We'll get the guys' reaction from Kansas's win over BYU in the 1,000th game at Fall Gallon. Plus, will the